Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome in to a coffee break. We've got DMac, Rachel Veal hanging out with you. Mike Evans going to join us here in just a little bit because DMac and I have to figure out how the heck he is Jerry Rosburg as candidate number 3 for the Broncos coaching staff. But DMac, how are you this morning?
I heard Mike this morning on the Ray Didio show being all upset with a little promo that we're making fun of him with that. So I look forward to making fun of him in person.
It'll be fun. All right, there is some news we need to get to first, and it's actually on the mountain because Mikaela Shiffrin, she is a freaking badass, you guys, the greatest woman alpine skier of all time. Huge congratulations to her. Obviously proud to have a Colorado native have that title there, DMac. And I know you hit the slopes every once in a while, right, my friend?
Yeah, I love skiing. So I saw you up at Loveland. That was awesome. I hope you had a fun day up there.
And, I did.
Probably ran into my pal Dustin at some point, which is a great guy. Mikaela Shiffrin, she's Coloradan through and through, and super proud of her. Her story is so fascinating because she is an Olympic medalist already. Mm-hmm. She's the most successful women's skier ever now. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how much she'll be known for the collapse that she had in the last Olympics, where she just could not stay on her skis, which was just so bizarre, Rachel. I mean, it was one of the weirdest things of all time. And I just saw a documentary about her talking about, I think it was on Real Sports on HBO. It was really interesting. And, it's hard to explain. And mm-hmm. I don't know how much of your career is defined by a bad week, which she had at the Olympics, or, an absurd career. Absurd.
Yep.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think 1 week can define your career when you've had so many other successful weeks as well. I mean, look this is huge news for her, right? Like the greatest alpine skier of all time. Like that is a crazy title. And I'm so proud that she's a Colorado native. Like it's so cool to me, but I didn't even think about the Olympics. Like now that you mention it, I do remember, but I didn't even think about it because I just remember all the other times where I've been like, oh yeah, way to go. Way to go. Way to go. Way to go. So with that, we do pass along our congratulations to her and all of her success. But DMac, you mentioned Loveland, you mentioned Dustin. And so there's a clip that Dustin showed me this week that I just feel like the coffee break need to see. Roll it.
Oh, shoot. Stay back.
Hey, I'm glad you showed the long version of that clip because every time that comes up, it's always like the real short version. So you can see I was ripping it up there for quite a bit there, Rach.
I was going to say, well, I poke at you and make a little bit of fun at you. I could never do what you just did. So that was impressive. I have biffed it many, many, many times on the mountain. So
let me explain something really quick because that was up on the ridge. So you take a snowcat on the upper ridge at Loveland. Then you have to hike a chunk. It's not crazy, but a chunk. And then you get to a bowl area, which is really deep snow. And listen, I'm a okay powder skier. But like, I'm not an okay powder skier with one hand. So I'm there and Dustin hands me the GoPro with a stick. And I'm like, what am I, and in powder, essentially, you want to lean back a little bit to float. And then you use your arms. You actually set them back a little bit as guides. Well, yeah. I got to hold something I'm making excuses here, Rachel, but I think my excuses are legitimate. So, but I'll take it. It was falling into a bunch of pillows. And that's a classic clip that Dustin has cursed me with over the years. But looks like fun, doesn't it?
It does. It does look like fun. And I know the views out there are beautiful. So huge shout out to Dustin too. He hooked it up so that me and my friends could go up there for my birthday weekend. So a major shout out to him. We had an absolute blast and we will definitely be going back. Some other news we have to get to involves Jared Bednar, and he could possibly become the most winningest head coach in franchise history in his 500th NHL game. with a win against the Capitals. So best of luck to Jared Bednar. That'd be so cool. DMac, I actually want to ask you something about the Capitals and Darcy Kemper. Do the Avs miss him?
No, he's well, not now they don't, because they've won 5 in a row.
True.
I mean, it was looking a little dicey there. So as long as things go like they're going, they're fine. You know, actually in the playoffs, as in terms of goalie stats, he really wasn't all that good compared to most championship goaltenders. He missed an entire series because of his eye issue.
Yep.
But I love Darcy. I thought he was a great dude. He absolutely will be remembered here forever for what he helped do. But no, not really. I mean, the Avs are getting very solid goaltending overall, and they're getting much better team play. He will be in net for the Capitals tonight. And it was funny. Bednar was asked about him. It was like, yeah, you know, we like seeing him and everything. And then we're going to try to kick his ass. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Exactly.
That's, I'm sure that was said with a smile. And yeah, tonight could be a really, really cool night because it's the entire organization history, Rachel, not just the Avalanche. It goes back to when they were with the Quebec Nordiques.
Yeah. No, I say that because, and the Darcy thing, I say that because of the chemistry in the locker room and all of those things.
Yeah.
But it's also, I never felt like Darcy was, you know, hand in hand, shoulder or elbow in elbow with a lot of those guys too. So it's interesting because it just feels like sometimes goaltenders are completely, you know, separated from the rest.
Well,
of the team,
right? Darcy was definitely one of the guys. He definitely palled around with the guys. He was easy to get along with. He was super, super friendly. He was the tallest guy. And so when you put all that combination together, he was a good hang. And, you know, Georgiev is, I wouldn't say he's standoffish. He's just getting to know these guys. They're just building these relationships. But I did read a cool story from Peter Baugh of The Athletic that Francouz and Georgiev, when they were in Seattle, rented out a seaplane and then went to like the fish market. And Georgiev likes to go out and about. He likes to actually explore the cities that he goes to, which I think is pretty cool. I would like to think I would do the same thing. I mean, and Rachel, they have huge gobs of time off sometimes, depending on their travel and where they're at. So it's no big deal to go out for a couple hours. It's not distracting from your day. You're fine to do it. You can live a life and still play hockey at night. So I think Georgiev is getting more in the mix. It looks like he's pretty friendly with Frankie, which is great. And hey, you know, knock on wood, Rach, they've won 5 in a row. So just keep it going. Keep it going.
Mel is asking, is Ovechkin playing tonight? A lot of people are hoping to see him. Have you seen anything? Because I have not.
I have. I don't know. The Avs morning skate is going on as we speak. And then the Capitals would be after that. So you really just wouldn't know at this time period. But, you know, keep your eyes on our old Twitter and information and, you know, right here at denversports.com. And we'll fill you in as soon as we know, you'll know.
Absolutely. All right. So on that note, there is some news that came out right before coffee break, and that's about Ejiro Evero, the defensive coordinator for the Broncos, and he is getting their second interview with the Texans on Wednesday. He has now interviewed with all 5 vacancies. So every single team that has an opening, he has interviewed with. It's an interesting conversation because, you know, I almost think that Evero is going to get a head coaching job and Sean Payton is going to return to Fox, which I kind of thought would be the opposite eventually. I thought, oh, he's going to return back to be the DC of the Broncos. It's going to be totally fine. But the more and more I think about this, I don't think Evero's returning back to the Denver Broncos next season, D-Mac.
I think he's gone no matter what. I mean, he interviewed for all 5 openings, and he'll have other opportunities as well. You know, and I heard that his interview with the Broncos wasn't, you know, incredible. Listen, I think he was very loyal to Nathaniel Hackett. Okay. So if you're loyal to somebody and they fire him, I mean, most likely you're going to think the wrong move was made. And I don't think Evero would hide those feelings. I think he's a stand-up man. And I guess it would surprise me at this point, Rachel, if anybody, seriously, anybody from the existing staff is back. So, you know, he's a pretty prominent guy. I assume he'll be moving on. I like your instincts, though, with Sean Payton. I tend to agree with you. I tend to feel like TV may be calling him back, and it is amazing. We have not heard news about him coming back here to town this week for a second interview. Amazing.
I know. Well, let's get another person's insight onto Evero and Sean Payton as we bring in Mike Evans. Mike, how are you this morning? Thank you for taking time. I hear you're a little angry with us.
I'm angry with you?
Maybe frustrated is the word we should use.
No, I'm in a very good mood. Syracuse, North Carolina, at the Dome tonight. It's going to be rocking, like the old days. No, I'm not mad at you guys. No, I'm all good. What? No beefs here.
Okay.
By the way, Alex Ovechkin practiced yesterday with the Caps at Ball Arena. They skated yesterday, practiced yesterday, so the expectation is he'll go tonight, which I think is awesome because this guy is easily one of the top, 6, 7 players all time in the NHL?
For sure. Look at Mike getting all the dirty deets down at Ball Arena before the game. All right, I like it. No, so I bring up that you're frustrated with us because people are poking fun at you about Jerry Rosburg.
Oh.
And you and Mark having him as the number 3 candidate because DMac and I can't believe it, to be completely honest. Of all the candidates out there, why do you have him as number 3? Give us the details.
Well, first of all, I have no interest in a first-time head coach. I just don't. I don't want to go down that road again. Anybody who throws out maybe this time it'll be different. No, stop. I've played this game for too long here, being around this team. I'm not interested in that. Jerry Rosburg came in here and just all he did was just illuminate all the flaws of another first-time head coach in Nathaniel Hackett. And in just a couple of weeks he was here, he resonated with so many of us because what did he preach? He preached accountability. He preached toughness, and he said and stood up with his actions for all the things that we wanted all season long. So why would you automatically dismiss him? And by the way, this is a guy who, if you look closely at his coaching bio, for years was the associate head coach in Baltimore with John Harbaugh. So if you have a certain amount of respect for the way that, if you have a certain amount of respect.
But wait, Mike, you just said you don't want a first-time head coach. He would be a first-time head coach.
I think he's just in the short time he was here, he already showed that he being around the team and then also he
Mike,
himself. I don't put him in the category of a first-time head coach. No.
Because he filled in for 10 days, he's not a first-time head coach?
He's way ahead of the curve on some of the other people we're talking about. Yeah. By the way, and let me be clear. Okay. Mark was really making the case for Rosburg. If we're getting to Jerry Rosburg, who's like 3rd on my list, if we're getting to even the guy that is 2nd on my list, then this represents an epic fail by this Broncos ownership group. So if they don't get Sean Payton, as far as I'm concerned, anybody else after that is strictly put into the consolation prize category.
Mike, I think more and more they don't want Sean Payton.
I agree with you. I am 100% in agreement. I think they have cooled on Sean Payton more than Sean Payton has cooled on them. I think that Sean Payton wants to get back into coaching. I think if you understand what's been going on, the worst kept secret in the NFL is that Sean Payton wanted to coach this year. He wanted to coach in Miami. The plan was for him and Tom Brady to be together in Miami, and then the Brian Flores lawsuit blew all that up. So this notion that I've heard that, Sean Payton, his desire to coach is being held in question by the Broncos, that's a bunch of malarkey. The guy was ready to coach this year. I don't think he wants to sit out 2 straight years away from the game. I don't buy that at all. So, this is a case of the Broncos cooling on Sean Payton. I think it's a colossal mistake.
But do you think that he'll return back to TV? Because we know he was linked to both, the Los Angeles jobs. And so he's like, hey, maybe I will just wait 1 more year because one of those jobs could possibly open up.
Well, because I think you do have to take him and some of his confidants, whether it be a Colin Cowherd or Michael Lombardi speaking about it yesterday, that ownership really does matter to this guy. And I think it's why the prevailing opinion, I know Stink has talked about this, is that he either coaches the Broncos or he goes back to TV. He doesn't want anything to do with the Arizona ownership, the Carolina ownership, and the one ownership group that he actually thinks that would be good to work for would be the Broncos ownership group, but they don't want him.
Why is he going to go interview on Thursday, apparently, with Arizona?
just to see what they have to say. But I don't think he's serious about it. I think he wants the Broncos job, but the Broncos don't want him. And the question I throw out to all of you is why? Why are the Broncos cooling on Sean Payton? Because there's not one reason that I can find that makes sense.
Well, be more specific. It's Greg Penner. It's a one-person decision here. We're not taking a collective vote anymore. This is Greg Penner. So I guess I'd throw that back to you. Why do you think Greg Penner, based on who Greg Penner is, has cooled, apparently, on Sean Payton?
I think it comes down to a couple things. I think, and it to me shows Penner's inexperience when it comes to, it's one thing to run Walmart, it's another to run an NFL franchise. I think he is worried about all the power that a guy like Sean Payton might be able to command, which if Greg Penner knew his Bronco history, would realize that the most successful coach in Bronco history, the most successful coach in Denver sports history was Mike Shanahan, who ran that building with an iron fist. He was a dictator. I covered Shanahan week in, week out, like you cover the Broncos now. And let me tell you, there was nothing that happened in that building that Mike Shanahan was not aware of, that his fingerprints were not on. So this idea of Sean Payton having too much power, I don't buy. The idea that has surfaced that I've been hearing is that, hey, Sean Payton has some character issues that perhaps is scaring away Greg Penner. Again, look, Greg, this isn't Walmart. It's the NFL. It's pro sports. You will never find any professional sports locker room that is just chock full of angels. You will not find coaches that are complete angels. The job is to win, and that is the job, and that is what Sean Payton has proven. So if you're scared away because of too much power, ego, or even some character issues, then I'm sorry. That's your inexperience shining through.
Wow, you are the third person that has said something like that to me about what they're hearing about him behind the scenes. That is really, you're the third person in the past 12 hours to say something like, and unconnected to anybody else. So that is a strange little vibe that's going out there with Sean Payton right now, isn't it? If you're hearing that, I've heard it from somebody not connected to you at all, and then from somebody else who reached out to me last night, which is like, wow. I mean, I guess it's a small circle, but that is strange that word's actually leaking out there.
And by the way, this has nothing to do with Bountygate. So if you want to add Bountygate to it, I suppose you could. But again, what's the goal here? Are we trying to win football games? Are we trying to win Super Bowls? Or are we trying to earn merit badges? Because you know what? You know who is a great guy? You know who comes across as a super good family guy? Is Nathaniel Hackett, who was completely overmatched and overwhelmed. So the reasons why it appears that Greg Penner is cooling on Sean Payton, to me, shows his inexperience. And I'll go one step further. If you're looking at the three likely people that would now make up the top candidates other than Sean Payton, look at it. And this is where the inexperience shines through. If it's Dan Quinn, he's relying on George Payton's opinion. I know how you feel about that, DMac. If it is David Shaw, then it's simply about the comfort and the familiarity of the Stanford connections. And if it is DeMeco Ryans, then it's, you know what? I don't really know what a successful NFL model looks like, but I'll tell you what, I got to take a look at what San Francisco's doing. And boy, that seems like a really successful model that I would love to emulate. Let me ask you, how about all those teams that tried to pluck somebody from the Bill Belichick tree, either as a coach or as a front office type, because they were trying to get that New England model in place? We know the answer to that.
The truth is, you got to figure out things with Russ. I've actually kind of, I always thought this next hire was going to be a more permanent thing and had to move on from Russ. That's what was so intriguing about Jim Harbaugh to me. And I think they really did like Jim Harbaugh, but I don't think Jim Harbaugh wanted to be patient through the process. And I think he got cold feet and just sort of, pulled himself out. I'm rethinking things just a little bit. I'm sort of absorbing the hashtag stuck with Russ 3-year sort of deal. And so now I think really, Mike, I feel you. I get it. And I have the same frustrations. But I really do think they could go with a first-time guy here if Greg Penner just feels comfortable with that. Because you got to ride this Russ thing out until it just goes off the rails and off a cliff and Thelma Louises itself into oblivion before you can restart.
But that's
and
why
I wouldn't stand by passively either. I certainly would, Mike. Okay. I think we can find some common ground here. 5th, 6th, 7th, Brock Purdy rounds. What else is out there? Why not have 4 quarterbacks on the roster? Stash a couple on the practice squad if you need to. Why not? You guys realize Josh Johnson, the Broncos' theoretical backup quarterback, is now Brock Purdy's backup in San Francisco. We just got so uncreative with the quarterback process here because of Russ. So as long as you're telling me that's going to change and maybe we can just do the best we can and you can Brock Purdy Russell Wilson, I think it's a crazy strategy, but it's so crazy it might just work.
But why can't you get everything with a guy like Sean Payton? Because with Payton, you at least can feel some hope based on his track record that he can maybe resurrect Russell Wilson's career. And if he can't, you've given him the kind of stability, power, commitment that he can already start to put into action what his plan would be after.
Mike, you don't question Sean
What's the
Payton.
problem?
You don't question Sean Payton's motivation. I mean, Mike, have you ever had a movie made about you?
No.
Have you ever made $10 million a year to do basically nothing?
So you question his motivation to coach?
I am.
I don't.
I am.
I don't. His plan was not to be in the TV booth this year. His plan was
don't go there.
His plan was to be on the Miami Dolphins sideline. This is not a guy that was burned out, that was looking to get away from coaching no matter what. He wanted to coach this
I get it,
year.
but Mike,
then does it come down to, hey, I wanted to coach Tom Brady because he's one of the greatest of all times, if not the greatest of all time, so I was willing to do that, but I'm not going to sit here with a quarterback who has clearly struggled, who I'm not even sure is fixable.
Well, then you got to go back and question what he has said and what everybody else is saying for him, is that ownership matters so much. If that's the case, then why would you turn down the Broncos opportunity? If we all believe that this is the kind of ownership group that once they make a hire, they're not going to be Jerry Jones, David Tepper over your shoulder, Jim Irsay going to visit and then taking up your bathroom for an hour. This is going to be an ownership group that's going to stay out of the way. So this should be everything that Sean Payton is looking for, with the understanding that, hey, I'm going to have the time and the resources to put my program in place. So no, I think this is all about what the Broncos cooling on Payton more than Payton cooling on the Broncos.
I'm not going to write Sean Payton. I'm not writing him off, but I think the Broncos are going to wait for DeMeco Ryans just to see. And if Sean Payton's still there, okay, maybe. But I think you're right, man. It's wild in this whole process because we all thought, oh, it's Sean Payton interviewing people. Greg Penner saying, no. That's not how it's working here. And I'm happy to take my time. I don't care. So we are learning more about Greg Penner through this amazing, as Adam Schefter told us yesterday, the most patient hiring process of all time. And I do wonder if one of the reasons, guys, is because there are only 5 head coaching jobs where there's usually 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. So there are fewer jobs out there than usual. And maybe that is slowing down the whole process. Who knows, but it is super unusual.
It is. And my theory on that is that I think what we're seeing is NFL owners working in collusion, cahoots, whatever you want to call it, in that because of all the scrutiny that's come with some of the hirings, what happened with Brian Flores, the expansion of the Rooney Rule, the blowback to Jim Irsay hiring Jeff Saturday and immediately saying Saturday was going to be his guy if it could be up to him, but it's not up to him. There are other processes you have to go through.
And don't forget about the $800 million memo.
Yes, I was just going to get to that. The $800 million memo, which tells me that maybe these owners are like, you know what? Hey, everybody, you got an opening. Everybody's going to be watching. Let's really take our time, do our due diligence so that nobody can say when it's all said and done that the process wasn't done fairly.
I mean, that's definitely a good point. And I think we will learn if Sean Payton doesn't take another job, then he's all in on the Broncos and it is the Penners cooling off on him. But we can't ignore the elephant in the room, gentlemen, of they still have to give up a first-round pick for Sean Payton. And Emmanuel Sanders was actually asked about this, and he came out and said, he doesn't go out on the field. He's just a coach, meaning when he gets too far on the field, someone makes him move back. He can't play the game. He can't win the line of scrimmage. Coach is important, but I think improving the O-line/D-line depth is just as important. So can the Broncos overlook, or can they find somebody to still go on the O-line if they give up that first-round pick? Mike?
Emmanuel Sanders, home run, man. You're not wrong about that.
Yeah, I totally disagree. And again, I'm going to go back to an interview Michael Lombardi did recently. He was saying, if you look at the track record of teams that give up first-round picks for coaches, the teams have won those deals. Tampa won the deal for Gruden. Jets won the deal for Parcells. Patriots certainly won the deal with the Jets. So there's plenty of evidence that suggests that if you make a deal for a coach that you really believe can be the guy, it usually works out for the team that gives up the draft pick. And again, if I had presented to you, both of you here on Coffee Break, back in the early days of October, hey, DMac, hey, Rachel, I can guarantee you I can bring Sean Payton to Denver for Bradley Chubb and a third-round pick. What would you have said? Sign me up.
That way.
Sign me up. And we're talking about a first-round pick that, by the way, is either going to be 28, 29, 30, or 31st. It's as late in the first round as you can go. So this knowledge that you're giving up a king's ransom for a guy that you think can be the guy for the next 7 to 10 years around here. And remember, you're getting a guy. This is not your typical that gets thrown in my face. Oh, you want to hire a retread. This isn't a retread. This guy won big in the NFL. He finished as a winner in New Orleans. He didn't get fired. He walked away on his own, and he is regarded as one of the top 3-4 offensive minds in the entire NFL. For a late first and a third, come on, do it.
Yeah, but hold on. I think you're just putting it kind of wrong. Let me reposition that to you. Is Sean Payton worth a starting edge rusher, a starting right tackle, a starting cornerback, and a starting guard? Because one of the rumors I heard was the first and 2 3s that the Broncos have, meaning, and you already gave up Bradley Chubb. So you've already given up Chubb. You could draft a right tackle at 28. You could have, say, a corner and a guard that you may need in the third round. So take out the names, Mike. What about that? Pass rusher, starting right tackle, starting guard, starting, say, slot corner. And now Sean Payton's worth that? Okay,
you're going on the assumption that all of those picks hit. What if I counter by saying, hey, are you willing to trade Sylvester Williams, Bradley Roby,
Mike, hold on,
Ray for Sean Payton?
Do we suck in the draft or not? Are we good in the draft or do we suck in the draft?
How would you grade George Payton so far in his career as a GM of the Denver Broncos? Because that's going to answer your question.
He's been average. He's been
terrible.
He didn't draft Justin Fields, and so you gave him an F. He got a guy I'm not gonna have this quarterback argument with you, okay?
I'm not. Randy Gregory did the deal for Russell Wilson too soon. There's a million other different things.
But then, DMac, to your point, if he's been terrible in the draft, then why not give it all up for Sean Payton?
I think I just helped Mike's point there.
But you're talking about the draft as absolute. And again, you know that. Come on, I know you love the draft.
I just helped you, Mike.
But you also know the draft is still a 50-50. It is. It's a 50-50 thing.
Mike, I literally just helped your argument.
But that's what I'm saying. There isn't a general manager alive that's ever walked this planet that's hit on every pick. So for you to say, I can't trade for Sean Payton because I'm giving up on 4 starting players, then you are presenting a scenario that just doesn't exist.
And you're
everyone's
presenting a
existed in the
scenario,
draft.
which is true with George Payton, that the glass is half empty, not glass half
Okay,
full.
fine, but find me
You
a
have
general
the
manager.
Eeyore theory.
Find me a general manager that hits on every pick. You can't do it. So if your reluctance to trade for Sean Payton is because you know there's a GM out there that's going to hit on every pick that you're going to give up for Sean Payton, that just doesn't exist.
You know, there might be another angle here too. The Saints just might be ticked off at Sean Payton, and they may just be saying, forget it, because they could veto everything. They could drive the asking price so high that Sean Payton doesn't have a choice. We're assuming Sean Payton is going to dictate how this goes. That's not necessarily true. The Saints could just sit there if they're willing to not get anything, which there is no guarantee they'll get anything. If they're willing to just stick it to Sean Payton to hold everybody hostage, they can do that too. And we don't know that that's not happening.
Well, no, I don't, but I'm going to go based on the people that, and you and I had a conversation about Adam Schefter being, who's Adam Schefter? Only the most plugged in guy out there in the NFL. And he has said that Sean Payton's negotiating his own deal. So, I mean,
with who?
With whoever he wants.
But who is that right now?
Exactly. It's whoever he wants and who wants him. And right now that doesn't appear to be the Broncos.
Okay.
How many games can the Broncos win next year if they don't fix their O-line?
Oh,
6.
It's
5.
You watch NFL games and you listen to the people calling the games, and offensive line play has never been as bad as it is now. And I mean, I blame the college game. The college game, while wildly entertaining, is so wide open. There's so few teams running pro-style offenses that these offensive linemen just are so ill-equipped coming into the league. And then now you see plenty of teams copying college models. These offensive linemen they're just no good. And you see these teams. I mean, look at Cincinnati. What Cincinnati did the other day in Buffalo, they were able to win with backup offensive linemen because they were just able to pound on Buffalo. And as bad as a lot of these offensive linemen are when it comes to pass blocking, at least they can still be road graders in the run game if you just tell them, hey, you're just going straight ahead. But no, offensive line play is terrible. And if the Broncos could somehow fix it and move themselves up into the the top 12 offensive lines in the NFL, that would instantly put them on the fast track to go into the playoffs.
I guarantee you they'll be better at the offensive line. And here's why. The quarterback is Russell Wilson. You don't have a choice. They will have a Seattle Seahawks type Tebow-esque style of offense, which is heavy run to play action, boot rolls, and just look how Seattle was run to pass, really, in the time that Russ was there. And that's coming because it's painfully obvious. So, I mean, Mike, if you had DeMeco Ryans, just go with me here, as your head coach to focus in on the defense, you brought in our guy Greasy as the offensive coordinator from San Fran with a Shanahan type of style that Greasy knows so well. You're going to have a reincarnation of basically a Jake Plummer sort of mid-2000s Broncos team, and it's going to be all right. It's going to be better.
Well,
then be much better to run the ball.
Then let me throw out and throw back at you and everybody the arguments I was hearing a year ago when I had the gall to suggest that they look at Dan Quinn. The argument that was thrown at me was you can't get a defensive coach. You can't get a defensive coach. Defensive coaches don't work in today's NFL. And now here we are, a year later, just 1 year later, we're prepared to not only jump back into the first time ever head coach pool, but also somebody who's a defensive coordinator. And think about what's going on around the NFL. I think people play fast and loose choosing their wins when they try to look at particular trends. But one thing that is undeniable, it is definitely an offensive league. It's an offensive head coach league by and large, okay? And look at some of the defensive coaches out there and look at the struggles they're having. You go with DeMeco Ryans. Who did DeMeco Ryans take the place of? Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, defensive guy with the Jets, whose quarterback has, well, not even developed, but has regressed under a defensive coach's watch. Zach Wilson. Take a look at Brandon Staley, a defensive head coach. Everybody seems to agree now Justin Herbert needs a new coach. Even look at Buffalo. Okay, look at Josh Allen. He was not the same player this year as he was last year. And already in the aftermath of the loss, you're hearing people say, hey, Sean McDermott, good coach, but you need an offensive coach for Josh Allen. John Harbaugh, okay? Even John Harbaugh is being accused of, hey, dude, you just don't get what you have in Lamar Jackson. Again, another defensive-minded special teams coach. And need I remind you of Vic Fangio, who could never even be asked by the likes of DMac, hey, what'd you see from the offense? Because he answered, I wasn't watching them. I'll have to go back and tell you later after I look at the film. Hey, man, if our strategy when it comes to endorsing a new Broncos head coach is, hey, I know it hasn't worked out in the past, but let's just try it again. You never know. It might be better this time. Come on, we got to be better than that.
Man, you are down on Greg Penner. Woo!
I think his inexperience is shining through right now.
Down
it is
Penner.
shining through.
But you have to at least somewhat appreciate the fact that he is not jumping the gun so early, because that's exactly what happened last year. And look at the situation we're at. It feels like he's taking his time. He's going through every possible scenario, and you have to appreciate that at least a little bit.
Not Mike. Mike hates it. Mike hates it right now.
Rachel,
Mike
because
wants to back up the Brinks truck for Sean Payton, I can tell.
Because Rachel, at some point, patience gets replaced by you don't know what you're doing. And you're overwhelmed, and you're not sure.
But they already know that Sean Payton wants to come to the Broncos. They're like, okay, well, we for sure got this one. Let's take a look to see if anybody else can, show up Sean Payton a little bit.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Rachel, Mike is a Greg Penner hater. It's beyond obvious. He is questioning his acumen and his lack of experience and his indecisiveness. That's what Mike is saying. And listen, man, I'm not here to argue because Mike, Greg Penner made the greatest mistake of all already. He kept George Payton because to your point, Mike, to help you again, he doesn't know what he's doing. So he had to keep a guy around because if he had more experience, anybody and their brother would have blown out George Payton. Give me a break.
Is that because he's problem number one?
No, 2. Russ is 1 in his contract.
Yeah. Hey, Rachel, by the way, whatever hate in my heart I have for Greg Penner doesn't even come close to how much DMac's rooting for Russell Wilson to fail.
I'm not getting another tattoo to prove I'm not rooting against him.
And by the way, you say, dude, what is with your Tebow obsession? You wrote the manifesto. You think that they would have won multiple Super Bowls here with Tebow. Now you're saying that they got to run a Tebow-type offense. Tim Tebow never ran anything even remotely running an NFL offense. So I'm with you. Go back to doing what he did in Seattle, but please don't invoke Tim Tebow because that didn't even come close to being an NFL offense.
Well, Tebow, they had the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL that year. So, and he had a winning record as a starter, and he won a playoff game.
I know.
So I guess that's who would want to win the AFC West, have a winning record, win a playoff game, and lead the league in rushing.
And in a league that is, as we've all known, is starving for quarterbacks. Nobody else recognized that. Only you.
Mikey, I want to move on from Russ. I told you what I would do a million times. I'd blow out Payton, do a post-June 1st designation for Russell Wilson, eat it, go 1-16, and go get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Or maybe Shedeur Sanders. We'll see how that works out. But I accept listen, I'm working in a world nobody does what I want to do. So I am constantly making adjustments here to try to make the best of a lousy situation.
Shedeur Sanders, he's going to be exposed when they have to run through that gauntlet.
You're hating Shedeur Sanders?
No, I'm mocking the whole idea that, oh my God, you can't expect anything from CU this year. Have you seen their schedule? It is. Let me think of the words I've heard. Brutal, murderous. Sorry, those are words I will never, ever, ever attach with anything connected to the
Well,
Pac-12.
I hope to hear this venom when you talk to Joel Klatt, because Joel is writing the the Rainbow Parade to college glory because of everything with CU right
Well,
now.
if he agrees with me, I think that this team absolutely should be. We should be talking about a 6 to 8 win team with CU this year. And if you get to that level, then that is absolutely a place from which you can springboard to where Joel says they can be next year, and that is competing for the college football. You can't make that jump if you win 4 games this year.
The CU Mafia has Shedeur Sanders as a finalist for the Heisman already.
You are right. By the way, Rachel, I know you have never seen a sports media mafia quite like CU Mafia.
It's ridiculous.
CU media mafia in this town over the last 2 decades is unbelievable.
And
Mike?
it kills me a little bit as a CSU Ram. It hurts my heart a little bit to see them get all of this glory and all of this excitement. But I also say the last time a superstar came to Denver was last February, and look at how that ended for the Denver Broncos. Right? Caution them wisely.
You know, it's funny, too. I think Mike and I have the most unbiased. We don't have a dog in the race. You know, our school is Syracuse. I'm looking forward to the game against UNC tonight. So we look at it from, you really should trust our perspective on the CU stuff because we don't care. I mean, you know, it's fun for everybody else. But having been around it for the past 23 years, Rachel, it's mind-boggling to see how I guess Boulder is the sun and everything else circles around Boulder. I mean, it's comical. And the funniest part is all these guys get together and just talk to each other like they're solving the world's problems, you know, and it all centers around the Flatirons.
They talk themselves up to, you know, the very, very tippy top.
I'll give this out to CSU people. The arrogance of the CU Mafia when it comes to, I mean, it is, dude, it's next level. They may win, if they're lucky, 5 games this year. Maybe. Their schedule is brutal to start, you know? And hey, listen, you want to talk about a must-win with no pressure. That CU-CSU game with no pressure on the Rams, 0 pressure on the Rams, is a must-win for CU because they very well could be 0-2 going into that game.
Oh, my gosh. Their over-under is 4.5. Are you going over?
That's about right.
Well,
I'll take the under.
They better go over comfortably because I have a hard time believing that they're going to go from winning 4 games this year to all of a sudden being in the college football play. I know it's expanding to 12 games, but to think that they're going to make that kind of leap in year 2, coming off 4 wins, no way.
I'm with you. Mike, who are you taking this weekend? Who you got?
Cincinnati's going to beat the Chiefs, and the good news for Chiefs Kingdom, anybody who's a Chiefs fan listening right now, the good news is you got a built-in excuse. You were going to get beat anyway, even if Mahomes was healthy, but now you can just sit and cry and say, well, if Mahomes was healthy, it would have been different. No, Cincinnati's a juggernaut right now. Cincinnati wins, and in the NFC, I think the clock strikes midnight for Brock Purdy, and Philadelphia wins.
Okay, sounds good. Well, as always, Mike, appreciate your time. Thank you for always making me laugh anytime I get you and DMac together. Everyone in the comments agrees with that one. DMac, as always, a pleasure as well. And to everyone else for hanging out with us, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 10:30.
Watch the Q's tonight. Q's.
Pray for UNC.
Bye, everybody.